The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
My baby dolls, we are back again, another episode of Genesis. As always, I'm your host, Ian Kahanowitz, and today we bring back the lovely and talented Miss Gloria Loring. Gloria's time on the show, I think, is a fourth time on my show, and as always, we always have a great time talking to her, what she's been doing, and today we have a lot to talk about with Gloria. New grandchildren, she just did a play, nice work if you can get it, on the West Coast, and she remains active even after all these years, and it's really, really a joy to see that she is still thriving, still doing shows, raising now her grandchildren, and not to mention a brand new puppy, but hey, all good things. But you are listening to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The network is definitely growing. We're getting a lot more shows. And hey, I'm just proud to be on this wonderful network with a lot of great people. And it gives me opportunities to sit down with folks like Gloria. A few weeks ago, as most of you know, we had Barry Williams on the show, and he was talking about the Brady Bunch and his work on stage. And today we follow up another show on stage and TV and music with Gloria Loring. And if you don't know Gloria Loring, she's been around for about a little over 50 years. Maybe you would recognize her songs from theme shows like Different Strokes, The Facts of Life. She had a number one hit, Friends and Lover, with Carl Williams back in 1984-5. But she's here again today, star of Days of Our Lives for about 6 years. It's Liz Chandler. And without any further ado, welcome to the show, Gloria.
Well, hello. It's so nice to be here. I have to just say one little thing, because it's why you were talking about Barry Williams, and you said Carl Williams, and it's actually Carl Anderson that I recorded.
Carl Anderson. That's right.
Well, it's easy to do. Anyway, but I'm happy to be with you. It's always fun to talk with you.
Oh, it's my honor. The first place we're going with Mia Love. Hey, what's going on with Mia? She was supposed to be born March 1st. She comes a little early at February 22nd.
Yeah, they decided that they wanted to get in there, and there were some things that they thought could be problematic, so she came a little early. Mia Love, for those of you who are listening, is the daughter and of my son Robin Thicke and April Geary, and my granddaughter, my first granddaughter, and then she's doing great. She's a little over 3 months old now, and I'm actually going to see her Wednesday when we're driving up the coast, and we're going to stop at the house to see her for just a little bit. So that'll be nice. And then I have another granddaughter, which I know you and I talked about before we went on the air. My son Brennan and his wife Dolly did a fostering of a little girl for, like 19, 20 months. It took a long time, with an intent to adopt, and we just got the final adoption papers signed, and she's 3 years old now, and she's just a little pistol, and we just love her so much. Her name is Cheyenne Penelope Thicke, and she's ours. She's all ours now, and nothing can take her away, and it's so sweet. Because when you're fostering, parents can change their minds. They can get cleared from whatever their difficulties were, and so it's a very joyful time. I had 3 grandsons, and now I have 5 grandchildren with 2 granddaughters. It's real sweet.
That's awesome. And you know what? You know what really threw me? That the judge took a picture with the family. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised too. They let that happen. Yeah. And we had about 15, 16 people, friends, and brought their kids, and we had the courtroom was packed with our folks, and everybody just so happy, and what a joyous day.
And the little one over there, Julian, he's getting real big. He's 7 years old now, I see.
Well, actually, he just turned 8. Yeah, he was 7 months ago, and he just turned 8. And then my other grandson, Tyler, Brennan's son, is 10. And here I'm talking about my grandchildren, like, people need to hear about that. But anybody who has children or grandchildren, you know how precious it is to have a new member of the family. It's extraordinary. It's an exponential rendering of the joy factor.
Well, that's why I decided to talk about it, because number one, family has always been important to you. We've tackled the subject 40-something years ago. You know, Brendan gets diabetes, and you were just devastated, and you're traveling around. Now you have grandchildren, and I remember everything from that time to in between, starting to show my age. But we're coming up on the 40th anniversary of Facts of Life. Is anything in the works for a reunion?
You know, I don't know. They had a little bit of a reunion with, something special for Charlotte Rae, and I'm not sure if she turned 90 or what it was, but we did one of the morning shows, and I came on and sang Facts of Life, and, you know, a number of the actors were there, and it was very sweet. That show has just lasted and lasted and lasted. Who knew?
Well, you know what? They changed the formula after the first season, as I recall. And they even changed the song up a bit. If you hear the theme song, I believe they made it quicker, if I'm not mistaken. But Molly Ringwald was on.
It was basically the same. The difference was the first year they had, even though Alan Thicke, my then husband, and very, very talented songwriter, and I wrote the Facts of Life theme, even though we wrote it, they had Charlotte Rae sing it. You take the good, you take the bad, you take the
yep.
good. You know. And then the second year, they decided they wanted to make it a little more rock and roll and add some guitars and whatever. And so they and brought me in to sing it, which I was so happy.
And you know, it's a timeless thing. It's on the syndication and cable all the time. I always get a chance to relive my youth through that, because like I always discuss with you, you know, Gloria, when you sang the song, when someone listens to it, it is one of the most truthful and heartfelt songs anyone could do, because we all have to grow up sometime.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably the appeal of it. Those opening lines were Alan's. He was great. You know, when I met him, he was working at the CBC, and I think most people know we lost him 2 years ago, and just suddenly, and he had an aortic aneurysm, and he was gone in minutes, and it was such a shock to the family, because even though he and I hadn't been married for, oh my gosh, over 30 years, we were still friendly, and he was like, "Hey, Gloria," you know. I'll tell a funny story on Alan. He was so funny. I swear, I stayed married to him 5 years longer than I would have otherwise, because he was so darn funny. But we had when my grandson Tyler, Brennan's son, was I think it was about 4. He loved the movie Tangled, and he wanted a Rapunzel birthday party. He loved the blonde lady in Rapunzel. So they got a character actor, and the lady came with a long wig on and to the house, and she was going to play games with the kids and paint their faces, you know, that kind of thing, birthday party stuff. And she came in. She was a very pretty young woman, and we were standing in the kitchen. It was Alan and Robin and Brennan and me, and somebody else was there. And we all said, "Well, hello," because Tyler was there. And we all said, "Hello, Rapunzel." And Alan said, "Hello, Rapunzel."
that is great.
Or Sleazy Ted Knight or something, you know. I mean, oh my God, we were laughing so hard, and it was just Alan's sense of humor. He was so brilliant at that.
And you know, yeah, I mean, I watched Growing Pains for years, and it took me probably around a few years. Again, I was about 15 when the show went on, so I'm Kirk Cameron's age. And then I made the connection that Alan Thicke was your ex-husband at the time, and that both of you had written the songs for Different Strokes and Facts of Life. And it just like floored me because, my mother watched Days, and I always knew you as Liz Chandler growing up, and the woman who sang Facts of Life, and of course, Carl Anderson's song Friends and Lovers, and now Alan Thicke, who I absolutely adored his show Growing Pains. Now we're keeping it all in the family. Then your kids grow up, and I know who they are. So to me, it's just like wow. And you know what the good thing is? You continue to act on stage. And in April this year, you did nice work. If you can get it, tell us a little bit about this modern adaptation of it.
Well, what it was originally, it was a play called Okay, and it was based on a comedy routine. Are we going to do it? Okay, 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 okay. That kind of silly thing that's vaudeville. And it was from the 20s, I believe, or early 30s. And the George Gershwin people, publishers, realized that they had so many Gershwin songs that had never seen the light of day particularly and had not attained any big stardom. And so they decided that they wanted somebody to write a vehicle for all these unpublished, unsung Gershwin songs. And somebody came along and did that, and I think it was 2010. And they took the old play called Okay, and they inserted all this great George Gershwin, beautiful songs. And it's a farce, and it's about prohibition and mistaken identity and crazy characters and over-the-top comedy. And it was so much fun. We did it at the Karen and Richard Carpenter Center in Long Beach and had a full complement of tap dancers and singers and just wonderful, wonderful cast. And I got to play Mother. And yes, come in. I turns out everybody's wondering who is Brownbeard, and it turns out that Mother is Brownbeard, the hottest. What is that? What is it when you oh, for heaven's sakes, I can't think of the word. When you run hooch, you run liquor, moonshine and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Bootlegging.
Bootlegger.
Bootlegging.
Anyway, so I'm the hottest bootlegger on the East Coast, and I come in and turn the whole thing around in the last 15 minutes, and it was great fun. And I would sit backstage sometimes and just watch everybody on stage. They were so talented and skillful and funny. Oh my God, we had some, first-rate Broadway people there, and here we were in Long Beach, and it was just a joy. So that was a month-long project, and I was happy. And they gave me a beautiful beach house to stay in, and boy, I had such a good time.
It looked like, and I saw some clips from the play, and not only that, but it got rave reviews. They even said it's a joy that it came to the West Coast because it's usually been on the East Coast, but the reviews were fantastic on this. Now let me ask you this: you were on a show earlier this year because I love doing my homework on you because every time I uncover something, it's like doing detective work. You were on a show called Your Messy Brilliance with Kelly. What an interview you did with her. It had me in tears, and I said, I got to ask Gloria a couple of these things because your answers were just dead on. And, we'll begin with this whole, me that happened last fall. After you and I spoke last fall, not maybe 2 weeks after Las Vegas happened. And then you had people coming out from Hollywood saying, this, that, and the other one sexually harassed me, raped me, and women across America just started standing up. It became an amazing thing. And, of course, as a lawyer, I follow these things. And let's talk about some of these things that you and Kelly discussed.
Well, gosh, I don't remember the interview. I know that it had to do with the Me Too movement.
Yep.
And so she was sexually harassed. I certainly have been.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that when people will say, well, why didn't you come forward before that? Because as women, we're taught that if we're raped or we're harassed, it's our fault just for being in the room. forget that we were completely dressed, or well, your dress was above your knee. You were inviting rape because my dress was above my knee. So there's all of this. I mean, look at the old tribalism, where if a woman is raped, the family has to kill her because it's an honor killing, because she's been sullied, therefore she needs to leave and be gone. And that's the mentality, that it's the woman's fault just for existing, just for being there. Well, why do women in some cultures have to cover themselves from head to toe? Because the fact that they exist as anything other than a burqa means that they are enticing men. Just their existence does. And it's something that we women have to come to terms with. It's only when we speak up and we start to say, this is not acceptable. I put up with this. I didn't say anything because I felt I had put myself in situations, or I was so shamed by it. Like, how did I say so-and-so did such and such, especially if it was a man of power. I had one of those people like Harvey Weinstein, act highly inappropriately with me. Not Harvey, but somebody else along with him. We feel guilty. We feel shamed. And only now that women are speaking up, I think, do we gather the courage. Some of us had the courage ahead of time, but some of us are gathering more courage now. And it's time. I think we have to claim our dignity and claim our nature of our bodies and our being, so that people don't feel it's okay to take advantage of us.
And you know what? You know what struck me? You told a story. You don't even have to be a man in power. You could even be a shoe salesperson owning a store on Park Avenue. What the heck went on there?
Yeah. There was I went in to look for. I mean, this was a very high-end shoe place on Park Avenue, and the man was dressed in a beautiful suit. And I had a fur coat on at the time. We wore furs, and it was a cold day. And I went in and I was looking for some shoes, and I didn't quite find what I like. And he said, "Well, thank you so much for coming in." And he reached in to give me a hug, and I thought it would be a little perfunctory, little air kiss on the cheek or something. He wrapped his hands around my back and ran them down my back to my bottom. And I got such a chill of evil, of powerlessness, of just a sick to my stomach. And all I could think to do was to get out of there as quickly as possible. And I felt shamed. He should have felt shamed, but I felt shamed. And that's the case, and what do you do if you need a job and the man is doing those kinds of things to you? And do you quit and your children don't have food? And I mean, it's terrible, and that's why it's about time, and it's a great thing that this is happening, and hopefully it'll become more and more well established that women should not be treated like that, and that it's just absolutely unacceptable. And I'm so heartened by the men who have stood up and said, this is wrong, this is not okay. It's time for that too. And we're so, all of us women who have spoken up are so grateful for our male partners in this journey forward.
I'm a huge advocate for women's baseball, and Perry Barber, she's an umpire for 38 years, and she is gung-ho because baseball suppresses women. They try to say, well, look, go play softball, that's more for you, but there is such a movement now. And she got into the game the same time you landed on Days of Our Lives in 1980. And she always thanks me. She's like, Ian, you put yourself out. And you know what? I could say me too, because I wrote an article many years ago about how women should be umpires in Major League Baseball. And I was fired I was fired. I was fired from it. I said, you know something, in Cuba, in Japan, in Australia, they all have women umpires in Major League Baseball, and Major League Baseball has a black that the publisher said, you're too radical for me. You're fired. We don't deal with this. And all the women And I said, it's the Me Too. But this brings me to another thing, and I love this because, something, I should have had this talk with you 20 years ago. Understand what your body is telling you. And I'll let you elaborate on that.
Well, it's so ephemeral. It's so difficult to talk about this subject because when we have anxiety, I think the best way to do it is through stories. I had a friend who was brutally abused as a child, sexually abused, and she had a lot of shame, of course, about that. And we were very close friends, and she started to tell me that she felt that something was wrong. And she had had medical problems, and we had used some alternative methods, some naturopathic methods, and we had fixed them. And she said, something's going wrong. I can feel it. I feel anxiety in my body. I think I better go get a bunch of tests and see if things are coming back again, a reemergence of my health problems. She came back, all the numbers, all the tests were better than ever, and she couldn't figure it out. But there was a person coming to visit who was an alcoholic, and who she said, well, but she's so smart and she's so beautiful, and I know, and she gets abusive after she has a few drinks, but we've been friends for so long, and before 7 p.m. she's terrific. So anyway, this woman came, we went out, we had an early dinner, and she had 3 or 4 glasses of wine, and by the time we got back to the house, she was starting to say certain things and act in certain ways that were inappropriate toward my friend. And suddenly I figured out, oh my gosh, this is what her body was telling her. Don't be with this woman. But her mind overrode it because, but we've been friends for so long, but this woman was toxic for her. And she wound up in tears and all upset. And fortunately, I was there to kind of mitigate the circumstance, and it didn't get too out of hand. But still, it felt very threatening to my friend. And so when we feel anxiety about somebody, there's a reason that we have those fear mechanisms within us. That there was a book not too long ago, in the last several years, about how to use fear as a warning system. If you're around somebody and you're afraid, there was a story recently of a woman, she was walking or running, and this guy stopped her and wanted to talk to her, and she got a shot of just abject fear, and she somehow extricated herself from the situation, and within 24 hours there was a dead woman on that beach. And it turned out that they did, and it was this guy, but she trusted, he said, can you show me where such and such is, or something, and she trusted her fear. She just felt her skin crawl, and she got out of there. And, we do ourselves a service when we start to listen to our anxiety about being in the presence of someone. And whatever it takes, it's okay to hurt someone's feelings if that person is dangerous to us. And by dangerous, I don't mean necessarily they're going to kill us, but there are people who harm our sense of ourselves. So it's important to pay attention. I had another instance. I think the best way to do this is talk about, I hurt my back, and I was in a show called Stardust in San Francisco for 4 months. And I went to the chiropractor, and she was adjusting my spine, and she said, well, I want you to come in every day this week, and we'll get this fixed up. And the last day, the Friday that I was going to go in, I woke up and I thought, I don't want to go. But I said, I can't. It's 8:30. I have a 10 o'clock appointment. I can't cancel. But everything in me said, I don't want to go to this appointment. Well, I went to the appointment. She adjusted my neck, and I started sobbing. And somehow she opened up something in me that was ancient and harmed and wounded, and I cried and cried and cried. It was getting adjusted every day was too much for me. And I learned then, if your body says, I don't want to do this, there might be a good reason. And you may, and this is something that each of us has to learn for ourselves, but you may want to learn to listen to those signals and signs that something's not okay in your life, and you may need to take steps to protect yourself.
And that's absolutely true. Like I said, I could have used this advice 20 years ago when I worked for a law firm, and the partners were just so new lawyers get beat up like you wouldn't believe. You would think it's all glamour, and that they just. And I used to be scared to go to work, but this segues me into another thing for self-help. You were doing a play, and this is in your article, How to Drop the Drama, because I think it segues right in, but this is a little bit more imminent. You were doing a play called Anything Goes up in Detroit, and you were ready to take the stage in 20 minutes, and you're getting shocking news over the phone about a newspaper article that's going to be published. What's going on here, and how did you deal with it?
Well, sometimes when we can change our mind, we can change our experience. And they said they were going to publish it. Did I have any comment? And I said, no comment. And I got off the phone, and I got very nervous because it was something that could potentially be hurtful to people I loved. And I thought, I can't stop it. I've got to go on. I've got to get myself together. And I thought, what could I think? What could I imagine? And I thought, if I could imagine myself beyond this moment, beyond this article, because very often 95% of everything we fear turns out okay, and we're all right, and somebody is taken to the hospital and they recover, and it's scary for a while, but everything kind of works its way out. And I thought, what could I think? And I remembered being at Jones Beach in Long Island when I was a kid, and the waves would come in, and sometimes the waves would be gentle, and sometimes they'd come in like they were going to sweep you off your feet and take you out to sea, and you'd start running and screaming, like, ah! And by the time the wave got to you, it was this small thing that just lapped at your ankles. And I thought, you know what, maybe this newspaper article is like that. It's one of those big waves that by the time it's going to get to me, right now it feels huge, but by the time it's going to get to me, it's going to be small. And sure enough, by the time it was published and it came out, there was no fuss about it. Nobody even saw it. And all my fears were unfounded. And so if you can change your mind about something and decide that you'll get through this no matter what. If you have some article or prayer of faith or practical application of high-level philosophical principles, and just decide, I'm going to see myself on the other side of this. Okay, I'm in an ambulance, I had a car crash, and I'm going to start understanding that my body is already working on healing. That's something that I do. I got hit in the eye one day, and I put my hands over my eye, and I immediately started to say to myself, my body is working on healing right this minute. I am in the process of healing already. And sure enough, everything worked out fine, and it most often does. But we just have to just practice that application of hope, of faith. And it's a good way to get ourselves, first of all, we have less stress on the way, and less stress means more application of healing. And we just feel better. We just keep saying, I am healing right now. Because it's actually true. The moment you get hit, you get punctured or you get cut or whatever, the body is flooding that area with antibodies and fresh blood and, everything it needs to start the healing process. And then what we get to do is we get to augment the healing process with the right antiseptic and Band-Aid and doctor visit and, all of that. But it's always happening. We're always working on healing. And that's a place to keep our mind instead of, oh my gosh, it's terrible, I won't recover, this is terrible. How bad is it going to be? And, that sort of thing.
And, people always seem, as human beings, we're creatures of habit. We always seem to get our thoughts running away with it. And like you mentioned the key there, most of the time, it's not as bad as what we're thinking. We can't predict.
Well, absolutely. The best example I have of that is my darling friend Beth. She had an Aunt Betty, and she would call Aunt Betty, and she'd say, "Hello, Aunt Betty," and Aunt Betty would say, "Not so good."
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, it's like my grandmother.
She didn't even get to ask her, "How are you?" She'd just say, "Hi, Aunt Betty," and "Not so good."
Yeah, I know people like that. But something. Another good thing in another article that you did on how to drop the drama is how to not irritate people further. People are always going to poke at you. They're going to try to get under your skin. And you talk about inner disarmament, and that is so hard for people, especially if they're volatile.
I read this phrase, inner disarmament, and I thought,
that's right.
Isn't it amazing? We all have things that we're so quick to take offense, and we're so quick to react in defensiveness, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else. And I thought, I am going to work on inner disarmament, and it has been so helpful to just keep my mouth shut. My mind goes there, but don't let it, don't let it escape from my mouth. So somebody says something a little snarky or unfortunate, and you literally can just go, "Oh, okay."
That's right. Yeah, and that's very hard to do. And that's it's very hard, especially me, who was like, you got to be kidding me, right? I've been trained to argue effectively, and I don't, so I'm reading this, and I'm like, something, and I'm going back through my mind. I'm like, how many people did I actually make it worse by actually arguing? Now I'm just getting too old to argue.
Very often, there may be an appropriate time. Someone says something terrible about someone we love, and we say, you know what? That's not okay with me. We're going to end this conversation. There are ways to do that. I remember I was taught a phrase that I thought was just wonderful, and a friend of mine was talking about someone I knew that I cared about and thought was terrific, and she was saying really unfortunate things, and I used this phrase that I had learned. I didn't think it up in the moment, and I said, you know what? This conversation is not a good thing for either one of us, so I think it's time we stopped it right now. I'm not comfortable with talking about my friend like that. And I didn't say you're bad, you're wrong. I'm saying I'm not comfortable. This conversation is not doing either one of us any good. And it's not, because gossiping and saying bad things about people, that's not a good thing to do. So, as your grandmother probably told you, if you can't say something nice, don't say something at all. Don't say anything at all. And it still holds true. Oh, my God, I wish a couple of people in our government could use that.
Well, and that's the next thing I'm going to get to, and my last thing I'm going to get to, because you know what? You can make a lot of good points. Let your intelligence begin to rule wherever you sit with others. And my in-laws, God bless them, they were well in their 80s. They came to this country back in 1950, nothing. Barely understand the English language, and they've been here 68 years. And every time I get mad, they're like, "You're a smart man. You got all this education." They're not supposed to get mad. And it ties into let your intelligence rule. Would an intelligent person want to upset somebody? Now we shift to the government. And this is what I wanted to ask you. I don't know whether it was blessed or you were just there because you were born in the 1940s. Look, you saw the youth movement of the 1960s. I didn't. Okay, I grew up in the conservative 80s with Reagan and say no to drugs, sex, and everything. This is your brain on drugs. And it was a different generation that I grew up in. But we've had all these killings, not only in school, but in everything else. And as an attorney, I fought for years for gun control in Massachusetts. Thank God they have very strict laws up here in Massachusetts, probably one of the strictest in all the states. And it wasn't until Parkland this year that I've seen for the first time in my life that the kids and youth of America are doing something about this. Why did it take so long, and why is there such a gap between the youth of the 1960s when you grew up and the kids that, today?
You know what? I don't know. I'm not a sociologist. I think that sometimes just enough is enough. I think the most important thing that we have to do with this gun issue, most people in the United States are fine with extensive background checks, with taking the AR-15s off the market, getting those out of circulation, and they're not being heard. I mean, I have friends who are gun owners, and we've been able to have a very reasonable conversation. But there are elements that are making it, black or white. There's no in-between. And there is an in-between. For heaven's sakes, if you want to protect your home, if you want to go hunting, you don't go hunting with an AR-15, for heaven's sakes. That's the military. There's only one reason for an AR-15 or those kinds of weapons, and that's to kill as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. And there's a good conversation to be had around that. So yeah, I think we need to start talking to each other, and all this blaming and blaming and shaming that's going on. It's just too much. It's just too much. And if these kids can get some sense knocked into the adults around them, that would be really nice. And we don't need more guns. The more guns we have, the more people die. That's the bottom line. You look at countries where the citizenry is not armed, and they don't have anywhere near the deaths that we have from guns. So, it's a very complex subject. I would never have a gun in my home. I'll call the police. Thank you very much. I have an alarm system if somebody tries. And the idea that somebody's going to break into your home with a gun and you're going to have to shoot them, the chances of you actually killing that person are so small, or wounding. It's gotten so blown out of proportion and fear-based and fear-mongering, and nobody wants to take every hunter's gun. If you live in a rural community, it's perfectly reasonable to say, you know what, I'm out here in the sticks and, in the woods, and a gun feels like it should be part of my life. Okay, fine. We have a constitution that guarantees you can do that. Pass the background check. Be reasonable. Lock your guns away so children don't get to them. There are lots of very reasonable things we can do. We can talk to each other like adults. Let your intelligence rule, as Rumi says.
And that's where I'm going to end the show, because that was beautiful. And let's hope our politicians, who are more divided than I've ever seen in my life, and that's a conversation for another time, because I got a lot of conservative people who follow me, and they always ask me to talk politics, and I never do. They know I'm liberal. They know what I stand for, and I just won't get into it because I don't want to offend anyone, and I'm not going to change anyone's viewpoint anyway. So
no, we're not going to change. It's like religion. We're not going to change anybody's viewpoint. And I really get why people are conservative, why people, espouse those theories. But we also have to look at what actually works. And that makes a difference, too. I always say, okay, how are we going to solve the homelessness problem? What actually works? What actually works in getting people off the street is, first of all, give them a place to live. Then they start to say, oh, well, there are social services down the hall from my apartment. Let me check in. Maybe I could do something about my drinking. And they've shown again and again, get them housing first. Then they start to clean themselves up. So you go by evidence-based responsibility. And so that should go with whether it's a liberal concept or a conservative concept. What works? What actually works? Sometimes the conservative concepts work. Sometimes the more liberal work. But we can have those discussions and not be calling each other names. Oh, for heaven's sakes.
That's what the whole social media is about. Well, anyway, Gloria, as always, you are a beautiful guest. God bless you. You have a growing family, another dog. You're going on vacation. but I'll do. I mean, this is great, you know. I mean, honestly, for me, hey, my diabetes is in check. You know, it's at 6.3 for my A1C. I've lost. Yeah, you know that Victoza stuff and works, and you know, I'm rolling back for the first time in 8 years. I didn't have surgery on my feet, and you know, I think I raised about $3,000 for the American Diabetes Association. You know these things on Facebook, they said, you want your charity and stuff. Well, a lot of people follow me. So I said, you know, this disease is going to take me one day. Yeah, I'm sponsoring the American Diabetes Association. And a lot of people gave. And so they called me up one day and they're like, they said, you want to be a spokesperson? Sure, I'll be a spokesperson. Sure, you know, I'll go down to the diabetes center and we'll talk and we'll show my struggle with it. But, you know, I cannot begin to tell you what you've done for juvenile diabetes, for what you've done for regular diabetes. You are just a mensch, and I love you. And it's just great having you on this show. You know, I just, so, hey, hang on 1 second. I'll end the show. I'll talk to you for about a minute. Folks, we had a great time with Gloria. We'll probably ask Gloria by the end of the year maybe to come back and do some more stuff. But, you know, folks, have a nice summer because this is my last show. Now the kids get out of school and I'm going to have to be daddy daycare all summer. And, you know, God bless you. Baseball season continues. We got the World Cup on TV. Continue doing what you're doing. And in the words of my hero, Edward R. Murrow, good night, folks, and good luck.